describe themselves as being religious. That dropped 6% over the 7-year period. The number of
So these are people who identify themselves as religious,
so they're not affiliated,
but they're not affiliated. Okay.
The number of people that were unaffiliated grew 7%. Among people who were unaffiliated, belief in God dropped 9%. That was about 2%. They praying daily dropped 2%. Religion being very important dropped 3%. And attending services dropped monthly also dropped 1%. Among all adults in the U.S., belief in God dropped 3%, and those other three categories dropped 3%, and 4%.
Okay. All right. So what can you say based on the Pew study?
Among all U.S. adults, 3% less believed in God 7 years later.
Over this period of time.
Right.
Okay. That's what you can say.
Right.
You can't say most societies.
No, you told me to bring one example.
No, I know, but and that's great. This is an example, okay? And this, based on the Pew study, is what you can say is based on the Pew study, right? Because this is not, I mean, this is just a sampling of people, right? So it's not, you just have to say based on the Pew study that the level of religiosity, okay, or participation in religious organizations has dropped over this period of time X amount.
Right.
Okay, that's all you can say.
Okay.
Okay, you can't say most societies. You can't say all societies. You can't say many societies. You can't even say the American society in general. You can only say, according to this Pew study, over this period of time, this is what's happened. Okay, that's what we're talking about: precision and the ability to substantiate and to support what we're saying. Okay, that's a really good example, Ben. I'm glad you brought that in. Okay, because it's an illustration that we can't make sweeping generalizations. Okay? That we can really only restrict our observations or to things that we can support. Okay, in making those kinds of assertions. Okay, so thank you for bringing that in. I'm very aware of the Pew study. Right, the Pew Foundation does really excellent work. It's good stuff.
Favorite source for international studies.
It's good stuff. Okay. But like all surveys and all studies, we have to, it's like polling of all nature, right? It doesn't always accurately reflect what's really happening in society. And don't even get me started about the definition of a religious organization or religiosity or prayer or any of those things, okay? Because these are all contested concepts, right? What one person thinks of a prayer could be very different from another person. But the parameters of that particular study and with the understanding that it's limited in its way, you can make that assumption. You can say based on the Pew study. That's good. That's the kind of support you want to bring to your argumentation. Excellent. Okay, are we just a few things? We got our second workshop is tomorrow evening. Okay, 5:30 to whatever. Okay, come by. Spend as much time as you want. We'll talk about things. How many of you follow Twitter? Okay, you need to follow this class. Okay, so go onto the website and follow because that's where I make announcements of things. The topic for your Swazoria is on there. Okay, and I also announce, when you do really something fantastic and excellent on it, particularly on the quizzes. Okay, I don't know if you've been following the Twitter feed.
On the website. It shows up
on the website, yeah. So you see it. So there you go. That's where I sing your praises. Okay. Other questions? Yeah.
What happens if I actually can't make it to the workshop?
You can't make it to the workshop. The workshops are always, extra credit. They're not, okay? So you can get notes or find out what's happening from others. Yeah.
How much I should come to
3 points.
Okay.
3 points that you can apply to exam scores and paper scores.
And can we distribute those in a way?
Yes.
So we don't have to use all three. Okay.
Well, believe me, I will factor them in. I will factor them in. Okay. Because
choose which exam.
Well, yeah, you can,
Right.
but I mean, it's that I add up all the points from the exam and then I give you, for how many points. I will note though, I should note and remind you that we have other special events coming up. okay? It's all on the information. So we've got one, for example, next Monday. I think next Monday is the 17th, is that correct? Next Monday, so we've got an event next Monday. And all, they're like,
Wednesdays.
it's Wednesday, it's next Wednesday, okay, thank you. So there are like a dozen or more events that you can go to and get some quiz points.
And we're under tomorrow.
We have
Or
on
Wednesday.
Wednesday, we have a plenary tomorrow. Yes, sure, question.
I will not be here next week for Wednesday.
Well, there's the policy is in there about absences, right?
Most likely they would have documents.
You read there about what it is, okay, how it works. Okay. Yes,
How much do quizzes count as a percentage of our grade?
10?
10%.
Is it participation 15?
20. Discussion's 20, I think.
Yeah, so this, based on this stuff, accounts for 20, I think, or whatever it is, I don't know. Exactly. Other questions or comments? You guys are tearing it up. I'm just so proud of you. You are doing really excellent work. I'm fired up. So well done.
Did you watch your last discussion?
What's that?
Did you watch your last discussion?
I haven't finished the whole thing, but I started looking at it.
It's good.
I thought it was good.
Okay. All right, so Seneca, this is amazing stuff, all right? So how many of you were not expecting a little thing about Seneca on the quiz? So the principle there is what? Not necessarily an introduction, but you're going to be reading something by Seneca. You should know something about Seneca, right? Okay, you shouldn't just sort of dive in and start reading. You take the time and it's in the introduction, but you could go on Wikipedia, it doesn't matter, find out a little bit about Seneca. Who was this guy, right? That's true of every author that we read. We need to know a little bit something about it because that affects how we understand and how we interpret his work. What did you find? So those of you who did a little work on Seneca, anything interesting come out about Seneca?
He was an advisor to Nero.
He was. He was his tutor, right? Anything else about Seneca? He was also one of the wealthiest Romans of his time. What's that?
Well, ironic.
It is, well, I wouldn't go as far as say ironic, but it does cast quite a different cast on what he has to say about stuff, right?
Why would you not go as far to say?
Yeah, why is that not ironic?
So that's the impression that I was getting.
Well, it's because I'm a student of the ancient world, and irony comes from the Greek word ironeia, okay, and it has a very specific meaning. It is not, what is it, the Alanis Morissette
Okay, well,
thing.
we know that none of that.
Okay, all right. So irony is presenting oneself as, for example, Socrates was a practitioner of ironeia, because he would pass himself off as a person who really doesn't know anything, right? Okay. Oh, I'm just a bumbling philosopher. I don't know what's going on, when in fact he knows a lot. Okay, right? So that's ironeia. It's projecting or giving the impression that is contrary to fact. He never claims to be poor.
I would
He
say
never
this
claims to be
is
poor.
irony because
He
he talks a lot about wealth as though it's not bad.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. Yeah, no, he doesn't. He never says that.
And I quote, "I will be able to explain the reasons for my poverty."
Oh,
Well,
yes, but
poverty in
that-
what sense?
poverty
Yeah,
of what? It's not poverty in terms of wealth, but it's poverty in terms of what?
So do you mean when you say he's the wealthiest?
He's one of the
man,
wealthiest
You
people.
mean monetarily?
Oh, yes.
How did he amass that wealth?
Because he was advisor to the emperor.
At one time he says, I forget where exactly, but he says something
No,
like,
not yet.
like it's a symbol of like weakness if you despise someone for their wealth.
Exactly, yeah. No, he's very upfront. I mean, he was one of the wealthiest people in the Roman Empire. And so, but okay, so let's come back to, let's pin this down. What is he poor of? What constitutes poverty? What is the topic of that? Because you're talking about letter 1, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so what's the topic of that?
time.
Time.
We're all
Time.
poor in time.
He's poor in time. Why would he be poor in time? He's old, like me. Okay, I'm feeling the poverty of my time compared to whom?
Us.
To or his interlocutor. Who are these demonstrations? Lucilius, right? Lucilius. We don't know who this is.
Never makes me difference.
We don't know who Lucilius is. Well, how old do you think Lucilius is? He's young.
But that's
like
still
you.
big.
He's like you.
What is young though?
Yeah,
It's
because
relative.
young back then is different
It's
than
younger.
now.
Well, young.
He's probably about 3.
Okay, all right, so Ben, that was another sweeping generalization
But
about,
that's accurate.
What did he
it's
say?
not accurate.
But
It's not
young
accurate.
it has a different meaning now than it did then, because we live longer.
Well, some people live longer
On
than other
average, that's
people.
what
It depends on what society you're from, okay?
our society. We were talking about.
Okay, so you're talking about, again, you're saying, you're making this sweeping generalization about what constituted youth in the Roman world. Well, what's your source?
I don't have the source.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, okay, yes.
Well, it's just kind of a technical thing.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, the Senate was irrelevant at this point.
If the
but
what?
The Senate was relatively irrelevant at this point. The
Not
empire.
necessarily.
I mean, it was still a council, a form of council.
Well,
For
they-
the emperor,
they
but its deliberative power was diminished.
Yeah, but they oversaw a tenth of the provinces.
Yes, the governors.
They were appointed by the Senate. I mean, they weren't entirely inconsequential. They didn't have the power that the emperor certainly had.
Yes.
The princeps. The word emperor comes from imperium, imperator, which was a military designation, the ability to command or to deploy military forces.
Yes.
He called himself the princeps, which meant the first person.
Did that change during the Tetrarchy?
Well, yeah, then you had tetrarchs.
In any case, just for the technical words, was he a senator or senator?
Seneca,
Yes, did he have the
he
title of
came
senator?
from an equestrian family.
Oh, really? Yes. That is true.
Well, all right. What else? Are we ready to go? Are you ready, Jimmy?
Ready to go.
All right, let's fire it up. Hit the on.
Oh, I've been
Wait.
recording the whole time.
You've been recording the whole time. Aren't you
Sorry,
sneaky?
I know.
Aren't you sneaky? Well, that's the prerogative of the video producer.
It's gonna be fun to look
There
at
you go.
later.
Cinematic choices.
There you go.
Yep,
There you go.
It was
All right,
intentional.
Okay,
Mhm.
All right.
tear it up.
All right. So today we're talking about our 5 tenets of Stoicism. We all came up with. So I guess I'll just start with my first one, which is about letter 64. Talking about the loss of a friend. And essentially, the point that I was trying to make is that anyone can be a teacher. And a teacher doesn't have to be somebody who's designated to be a teacher. It can be anybody you kind of stumble upon that you learn from. And in text it says,
Yeah, we did.
there it is.
Yeah.
Really? You didn't teach me.
No, 63.
I didn't read it.
63.
Oh, are we not supposed to move on?
Will you check? and see?
Oh, never mind. We can move on.
The 63 is the one that talks about the death of the friend.
No, but 64 does too.
63
Oh.
and 65.
Anyway,
That's all right. You
we're
did a
talking
little
about-
extra reading.
Sure. Surely I should keep illness of a great man, of great men as stimuli to my spirit and celebrate their birthdays. Surely I should constantly address and honor them. The same reverence which I owe to my teachers is due to those teachers of the human race. Anyone want to share their one of their tenets?
I'll share one. I didn't really. So one of them was we as humans are blessed with foresight, but when fear overtakes hope in our foresight, it goes bad. and that is cited in letter 5, lines 8 and 9. I just thought that was interesting.
What was that again? I'm sorry.
Um,
You're one of your tenants.
Was we as humans are blessed with foresight, but when fear overtakes hope in that foresight, it becomes evil.
Can be good or bad.
Now,
That discussing moderation, like fear and
let me see.
I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah, going off what you said, I really thought it was interesting how they all do references to Epicurus, especially with like the death search and everything and stuff. I really with that. Class. Yeah.
it says, but the chief cause, sorry, I just read the little thing that I got it from. But the chief cause of each is that we do not adapt ourselves to present circumstances, but send our thoughts running ahead. So foresight, the greatest good of our human condition, is turned evil.
I was just going to read the line a little bit above that, letter 5, like 6, just as the same chain links the prisoner and the soldier, so these emotions which seem so opposed advance together. Fear goes along with hope, and I am not surprised they proceed like this. Each emotion comes from minded suspense, each is troubled by expectation of what is about to come. So basically, he's just saying, like, live in the present and don't have any hopes. I mean, that's what like, that's what, I mean, I probably shouldn't make that generalization.
Sweeping generalization.
But I like kind of took it like that. So I was thinking that it was more of a belief than a. Well, okay, so what about the belief in command things? Because I was a little lost because I feel like he's telling us to live like in the topic of discussion it says that form.
Yeah, you can write a belief.
Yeah, I feel like they can be like the same. A belief.
Well, but if it just be like, we do this or that, the command could be like, do this, do it, you shall not do this.
Well, beliefs
But-
are consistent, like, those are expressed through commandments. Like, that's would be like-
Right, so it's saying like, I don't know, I just thought it was interesting because I basically took it as like, don't have any hope because it can disappoint you.
One of mine was contemplate your past, the mortal nature of your present, and the chance in the future. So like, with how it talks about, I mean, don't really dwell on the past, but just learn from it. In the present, like, always contemplate your mortality. And he says that the mortality, or at least he talks about a lot of fear of death, letter 4. Especially when he says on page 7, he talks about it. He said, no suffering is greater than has an end. So contemplate your mortality for that reason. Like, if you know that you're just going to die and pass this life on, then I mean, what's the point of dwelling on that, really? And then he talks about chance, especially in the letter with slavery, which is letter 47 on page 70. And he talks about like the product of chance, which any man can suffer. And so the only difference between us and slaves are that people living usually different lives as a class is due to the fact that we have different circumstances were born into that. Not necessarily that it was, drawn out for us to follow this certain path, but like they were slaves specifically because, or usually because they're just born into it.
One of mine was like, I guess this is like not ironic since we learned the definition of that, but just really interesting. Like that one of mine was that like to live in thrift. Like there are several times where he says like to not live beyond your means. In letter 18 it says, he quotes from the native and says, dare my guests to scorn wealth and make yourself worthy of the divine. And then he goes on to say in line 13, no one is worthy of the God unless he despises possessions. I'm not forbidding you to own them, but I want to ensure that you own them without fear. If you persuade yourself that you will live happily even without them. And then in letter 4, he says, like lines 10 and 11, he says, to drive out hunger and thirst, you do not have to sit at arrogant doors or endure a painful frown and condescending courtesy. What nature needs is available and set before you. Men only sweat over superfluous things. And then in letter 5, he said, like line 5 and 6, he says, philosophy demands thrift, not self-punishment, and thrift need not be unadorned. And so it just seemed really interesting, given the information that you said earlier about him being so wealthy, that this is one of the ones that like stuck out the most to me, was that he was saying like, you know, everything that you need, nature provides for you. Like if you have to work for anything, it's like something superfluous, something that you don't really need, and like scorn wealth and don't be afraid to live without your possessions. But at the same time, he possesses all of this wealth. So I just thought it was interesting, not ironic, that he was preaching these things while himself being one of the wealthiest people in the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
I think in letter 5, one of the lines it says, "It is the mark of a weak mind not to be able to tolerate wealth." So I feel like it's not necessarily that he's scorning wealth, but that it's superfluous wealth. It's yeah. And also I think the idea is like he's one of his teachings, like if he didn't have his wealth, he would like be just as like happy or just as sound in mind as he is with wealth.
I mean, I don't know, I thought that line to me seemed more of like an insurance policy of like, hey, I'm going to preach all of these things about wealth, but like don't despise me for my wealth. Like it almost made it seem like I don't know, it just seemed really kind of not quite hypocritical, but just a little bit that he was preaching all of these things, but at the same time, clearly not being as thrifty himself.
Yeah, going off of that, one of my principles was moderation, but I wasn't going to say it after you said that he was really wealthy, because then I felt like it was wrong. But in letter 5, at like the 3rd section, it says, "Our toga should not dazzle, nor should it be drab. We should not have silverware chased with solid gold, but we should not think it a mark of thrift to go without silver and gold. Let our aim to be to follow a better life than the crowd, but not one opposed to it. Otherwise, we simply drive off and turn away the men we are trying to correct." So in that, it seems like he's like advocating for moderation, but I'm sure that he had a bunch of like expensive stuff if he was one of the most wealthy men at the time.
I think it's also important to note that he might have been the most wealthy, but we don't know like how many little possessions he had in his house. So it's like he might be wealthy in terms of like estate or money, but it might not be like superfluous.
Right, and I think maybe his wealth gave him the ability to like reflect, which is so important, like Zach was saying, like to reflect on everything. But I think that was also in the Nicomachean Ethics at the very end when he was talking about reflecting on your own life. And so the fact that he had the wealth and then he was still able to kind of overcome the trappings of it, I think that's really important. And one of my tenets was like self-awareness or self-sufficiency. So in letter 6, he said, "Of course I have many faults that should be corrected, reduced, and abolished, and even this is proof of a mind transformed for the better, that it sees the faults which it had not noticed until now." I think it's really important that the wealth did not seem to corrupt him. Maybe like as we're expecting it to, it really just gave him the space to do great things with his life and impact a lot of people through his writing. Especially like when he did the bath experiment, and he even like suggested the poverty experiment where you like pretend to be poor for a couple of days. I don't know. I thought that was a sign of like not wealth corrupting him, but rather the opposite.
Well, I think that's probably all just because I think to the Stoics, materialism is, well, it is very secondary. You know, you find happiness from within yourself, as you can see in letter 6, when, you know, he's talking, "I have begun to be a friend unto myself." And, you know, that's really where he's getting all this happiness out of. You know, he looks at Epicurus and everything else, and how he was able to interact with people, and it wasn't necessarily his counsel that made them feel better, but merely his presence, just because he did love himself. And you could be a beggar, like they were saying, you know, the beggar experiment, everything else, or you could be one of the most wealthy men in Rome, And as long as you have that self-love and that state of being, then you're fine there.
Right, but because of that, don't we need to like question and kind of dig deeper into maybe how him being one of these richest people affected him or infected?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, he would try to qualify it as wealth. You know, he'd be like, all right, yeah, sure, I'm wealthy, but even if I was poor, I would still enjoy the same thing because the principle remains the same. But at the same time, you know, like you said, he is kind of qualifying his own wealth.
Exactly.
I thought like going on what you said about like self-sufficiency and like him being his own friend. That was another thing that I noticed, especially in letter 9, was that he was talking about like there's no need for friends. That the wise man, in letter 9, line 5, it says the wise man is content not so that he wants to go without a friend, but so that he is able to go without. And the word able means accepting the loss of a friend calmly. But like it almost seemed like it was the wise man would have a friend for the purpose of utility, not pleasure. He goes on to say in line 8, for even if the wise man is contented with himself, he still wants to have a friend, if for no other reason than to practice friendship, not to let such a great man lie inert. Like, and so I just thought that was really interesting that like he made it seem like yes, you would want friends, but you need friends like if for no other reason you should want a friend simply for the ability to practice, like I guess the skill or the art of friendship. And I just thought that was really interesting the way that he described that as like you know, like a skill instead of something that was just a natural formation of a relationship.
Yeah.
It's
Going
definitely
off
one.
that-
So
Going off that and something you actually said earlier, after you referenced something what you did, no one's worthy of the God unless he despises his possessions. I'm not free you, and then I want to ensure that you, without fear, you will only achieve this in one way and persuade yourself you will have, but even without the withdrawals and confidence that they're going to disappear. The whole like if you look on them as if they're going to disappear, I think it's really interesting how he relates possessions and like letter 18 to letter 63 to friends. He also talks about how like when you have a friend like enter into that friendship or relationship as if they are also as if you something you want to. It says like letter 63 with section 7 says thinking about their friends is sweet and people become friends, usually makes my friends to use them and I've lost them if I still have them. So it's just interesting to me how he kind of uses the same philosophy as far as like the same friends he knows about possessions in general. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Right. And staying on the topic of friendship, he says kind of the same thing, or he alludes to kind of the same thing where he's like not really sure, and kind of hesitant to find friends in letter 3, where he says, but if you call anyone a friend who you do not trust as much as yourself, you're seriously mistaken and do not know the meaning of true friendship. So like what you were talking about, how he's kind of like friends are helpful, but you don't necessarily need them. He's also hesitant, it seems like, to create and like begin friendships.
Another way I think going along with what Will said, that he treats friendship almost as if it was another sort of wealth. In letter 9, in section 8, says the man who looks to his own needs and purchases friendship with this motive has the wrong idea. So he's kind of that also goes back to self-sufficiency and finding like peace and like fulfilling your own needs and living yourself. Just as he thinks that wealth should not be used to like find happiness.
Kind of backing off that, changing topic. In book or letter 41, around line 7, it says, "No man should be proud except for of his own merit." And that's given to the bottom. He may have a handsome staff of slaves and a noble house. He may sow a large estate and put out large sums of interest, but none of these things is in him, only around him. Praise in him what cannot be taken away or given what is peculiar to him. So I thought that was very important, like going off the wealth thing. He's basically saying like what like is inside your mind is like what's wealthy and like is what is valuable in life. Because also in letter 56, when he's talking about the bathhouse, he was like, however, I've hardened myself by now against all these disturbances, and I can even, wait, is this the one I want? Okay. Yeah, in fact, I am forcing my mind to focus on itself and not be distracted by outside events. Let everything be echoing outside. For what good is silence in the whole neighborhood if your emotions are in uproar? So I think basically his entire point is that like you need to be constantly thinking about like your life and what you're doing and like what's relevant. So I think this definition of wealth like might be knowledge.
I have a question for Dr. Morrell. What exactly was the role of slaves at the time? Like, because it talks a lot about slaves, like the slaves that they own. But like, how exactly did someone become a slave? And what exactly were the rules? And like, how many you would tend to have when you have them? And I just found that really intriguing.
This is a really interesting question and one that you can look up. Because we're talking about the tenets of Stoicism, okay? So I would make a little note in your notebook.
Sure.
I want to look up about Roman slavery.
Roman slavery.
Yeah. And then we can also talk about it in the workshop.
An overall theme that I noticed that was really interesting and I wanted to talk about before I noticed it was that it seems like his entire point of setting up all of these things and all of his discussions seems to be that it seems like he's trying to make his readers or maybe even himself get to the point where you could lose absolutely everything in your life, like friends, wealth, possessions, everything, and still be okay. Like it seems like he's setting everything up to the point where it can be everything is disposable. I mean, he describes friendship as something that you need for utility, simply for practicing the skill of friendship. And wealth, to him, he said it's better, to become unattached to your possessions and don't fear the loss of them. And so it seems like in everything that he's talking about, he's attempting to set it up to the point where if you lost all of your friends and all of your relationships and everything that you owned, you would have developed enough self-sufficiency and be constantly under the belief that you are the only thing that you need so that you would not be wanting for anything, just even if you lost everything. If that makes sense.
There's just like an emphasis on the capability
Yeah.
rather than like the actual lifestyle of stoicity. Judging man like that's why I think it's why he's really emphatic on not judging another person by like what they have and like what you see them having. It's all about like something internal that like their tolerance for pain or their tolerance for suffering or like their the lashes of chance kind of thing. So I mean, saying that I think that he's justifying like what he has in a way, and also what other people have. I mean, no matter what they have, really, if they're poor or rich. But if you can take it away, and they're able to continue being virtuous and have justice and prudence and all these virtues that he talks about in
I have it if you want me to read it.
letter 9, page 19. He talks about this guy Demetrius and Polyocrates. Totally butchered that. He said how this guy's town was burned down, and when he emerged alone, yet happy from that nationwide fire, Demetrius took his name, so and so, from the sacking of cities, asked him whether he had lost anything. No, said still though, I have all my goods with me. Here's a brave and gallant man, he conquered his enemy's conquest. I have lost nothing, he said, and forced others to wonder whether he had conquered. All my goods are with me. Justice, virtue, prudence, this very art of thinking, nothing good that can be taken away.
I think the concept of the toolbox of virtue and justice and prudence, that's really important to Stoicism, especially because those are like philosophical ideas that we've looked at time and time again, especially like last semester. And most of it, like a lot of this is in the context of living by nature and philosophy, which I kind of picked out as another tenet, like when he's talking about how in letter 8, philosophy is liberty, and our objective is to follow a life better than our peers. And that toolbox of those virtues and that moderation is what is going to enable someone to live in that way.
Okay, just a little side note. You're the quarterback, right? What constitutes a good discussion?
Here's one.
Well, yeah. What else? What constitutes a good, team effort, whether it's an orchestra or it's an athletic competition?
I mean, everyone can contribute.
Everyone contributes. Jimmy.
Anybody who has
No, not anybody. Direct. You're the quarterback. Okay.
I also thought like a main component of what he was like preaching was about like who you associate yourself with. And so you see this like in letter 47 about slavery and how we're all on like equal terms and how like you can like dine with them and talk to them. Okay, so section 10, page 67, in letter 47, he says, just think that the fellow you can call your slave was born from the same seeds and enjoyed the same sky, breathed, lived, and died on equal terms. So he's just talking about how everyone's kind of on the same like plane. I thought that was really interesting. He also talks about what like you should only read and like pay attention to a few aspects like of what you read and really like take in like those like pinpoint what you want to like I don't know. Like, yeah. Oh, I'm just like saying like who you associate yourself with is like how like self-embetterment. I think I just saw this in a bunch of other components and what he was saying. And also about like in the crowd, how he said do not like associate yourself with those who are corrupt, but rather so I have another quote too. You should not become like evil men because they are many, or be hostile to the many because they are like you. Withdraw into yourself as far as you can and associate with those who make you better. So this is in letter 8, section 3 on page 13. I thought it was just really interesting how he like incorporated like, so many different like, aspects. And I just thought it was like to make yourself better.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, kind of going off that about interacting with others. I'd like to call attention to letter 7, page 12, around like the 30 area. It's talking about like, not following the crowd and like the effects of like sitting idly at a big like show with a lot of people. And he says like, I come back more miserably, more ambitious, more self-indulgent, worse, more cruel and inhuman. I come back more miserably, more ambitious, more self-indulgent, worse, more cruel and inhuman because I was among human beings. I was kind of, I wasn't really confused, but I was really kind of surprised that like that just seems so like misanthropic. I was wondering what you guys thought about that section and why he said that.
I think that's the show he's talking about is like going to see like the gladiators like killing slaughter. I mean, it's not like going to see a movie. We have no idea just like what it's like to go into an arena and just watch people getting slaughtered. Because he was talking about how like they're not even giving it Oliver anymore. Like, the targets aren't. It's like they're literally just putting people to slaughter for like the entertainment of it. He has this like little dialogue back and forth like what people would say in response to what he's saying about it. I think it's important to know that.
I got that, but it just I like it was interesting to me at least how he justified it as because I was among human beings, not because I was seen to be killed. The first thing he mentioned before that was because I was among human beings. And I think that means about humanity as a whole. That's how he uses that.
Okay, wait. All right, so we're almost out of time. Do you have something? Okay.
Well, I was just gonna talk about what Will was saying.
Oh, about whether it's misanthropic or
just about humanity, about what he was trying to say. I was just gonna say I think he was talking about how when a bunch of humans get together, they tend to conform to each other. And so he was kind of telling, I think in that letter, talking about how you shouldn't conform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me bring. I just want to. We've got a couple of minutes here, and I want to highlight just a couple of things. For the assignment coming up for on Friday, we're going to continue our study of Seneca, even though the common session, the plenary lecture on Wednesday is going to be about Christianity, where we're going to be looking more specifically at the difference between Epicureanism and Stoicism, right? So that's going to be our thing on Friday. I did want to come back on a couple of points where, in particular, what Natalie said, because she really boiled things down, that's what Stoicism was all about, this seeking after what was called apatheia. It's a Greek term, and it means, remember that the Epicureans sought ataraxia, which is the state of not being bothered by things, okay? Being insulated from things that can disrupt our lives, okay? The Stoics, on the other hand, practiced the notion of apatheia, which meant to be resistant to things that could disrupt our life, okay? Pain, loss, the loss of possessions, okay? That it doesn't bother us if those things. So that's a really important insight that you brought. I thought you summarized that extremely well. All right, okay, yes. Good work. I'll see you in tomorrow night. If you can come by, that would be fantastic. I want you to take this.